A dress for poor people. That was the line. That was the sentence my own daughter screamed right in my face before destroying my heart. But look, little did she know that when I walked into that fancy ballroom in Buckhead days later, she was the one who was going to lose her ground. I saw the blood drain from her face. I saw her knees buckle, and I saw her collapse on that marble floor like a rag doll. And all of that started with a needle, a thread, and a mother who thought love was enough. I was sitting on the cold floor of the venue's bathroom when I heard the thud of her body hitting the ground. But let me pull myself together here so you can understand how we got to this nightmare. My name is Sylvia. I'm 62 years old, and I live in the West End, right here in Atlanta. My whole life my hands have been calloused, pricked by needles, stained with tailor's chalk. I'm a seamstress. Not one of those who appear in fashion magazines or have a fancy shop in a mall with air conditioning. No, I'm the seamstress who fixes the zipper on a worker's pants, who hems school uniforms, who works miracles with cheap fabric so a neighbor can go to Sunday service feeling like a queen. And until last week, my greatest pride, my greatest work of art, was my daughter Jasmine. But let me go back a bit, to the night everything fell apart. It was a Tuesday, or maybe it was already Wednesday, because the clock on the wall was already past 3 a.m. I was hunched over my old Singer sewing machine, that heavy iron one I inherited from my mama. The sound of it, that rhythmic thump, 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 is the soundtrack of my life. I was finishing Jasmine's wedding dress. Y'all, you have no idea. I didn't have the money to buy Italian silk or imported French lace. What I had was love and savings of $840 that took me 3 years to scrape together in a glass jar on top of the fridge. I bought the best satin money could buy at a fabric store downtown. I bought faux pearls, but good quality ones. And I spent nights, oh, so many nights, embroidering them one by one. That early morning, my back was screaming in pain. You know that pain that burns at the base of your spine and shoots up to your neck? My fingers were swollen, arthritis attacking hard because it had rained all week here in Georgia, but I didn't stop. Every stitch I made, I remembered something. A stitch for the time she fell off her bike and I sewed the knee of her pants. Another stitch for the time she graduated high school, and I made her prom dress out of scraps left over from other clients. Every pass of the needle was a promise I was keeping. My daughter is going to be the most beautiful bride this world has ever seen. I needed to stay awake because the wedding was coming up and I wanted it to be a surprise. That's when I grabbed that red thermal mug of mine, you know? The one I bought online last month because it said it kept coffee hot for 12 hours. And look, it was the best purchase I ever made. It's a beautiful mug, stainless steel, with a lid that actually seals tight. I filled it with black coffee, real strong, no sugar, and left it right there next to the machine. Every time my eyes got heavy, I took a sip, and the coffee was still steaming, hot like a hug. That little warmth in my throat was the only thing keeping me standing, besides the image of Jasmine smiling. I looked at that red mug and thought, hold on, Sylvia, just one more hem. When the first ray of sun hit the window of my studio, which is really just a spare room in my little house, I tied the last knot in the thread. I cut it with my fabric scissors, those heavy ones we don't let anyone use to cut paper, you know? And I lifted the dress. My God. It was beautiful. It wasn't extravagant. It didn't have a 10-foot train, but it had a soul. The white fabric glowed in the morning light. I had made a sweetheart neckline, just the way she liked it when she was a teenager, and the sleeves were made of delicate lace that I had restored from an antique veil. I smoothed the fabric with trembling hands, feeling the soft texture, and I cried. I cried from exhaustion. I cried from missing Samuel, her father, rest his soul. And I cried with pride. I thought, she's gonna understand. She's gonna see that this here isn't just cloth and thread. This here is her mother's life. What a fool I was. What an old, sentimental fool. I wrapped the dress with all the care in the world in a clean cotton sheet, bright white, so it wouldn't catch any dust on the way. I put it in the back seat of my car, a 2008 Ford that makes a hell of a noise when it starts, and drove toward Buckhead. For those who don't know Atlanta, let me explain. I live in the West End. It's a place of working people, Old houses, wooden porches, neighbors who know each other. But Buckhead, oh, Buckhead is another world. It's where the new money is, the mirrored buildings, the designer stores where folks like us are ashamed to even go in to look at the price tags. Jasmine lives there now, in an apartment that costs more per month than I make in 6 months of sewing. Traffic on Highway 85 was hell, as usual. Cars honking, heat rising from the asphalt. I was sweating in my Sunday dress, that simple floral one I used to go to church. I gripped the steering wheel tight, my heart beating in my throat. I kept rehearsing what I was going to say. Baby, look what Mama made. Baby, I saved every penny. Baby, I put a blessing in every seam. I got to her building. The doorman, a young guy who didn't even look me in the face properly, buzzed up. "Your mother is here, Mrs. Davis," he said. Mrs. Davis. She was already using the fiancé's last name before she even got married. That gave me a pang in my chest, but I ignored it. I went up the service elevator because I had the bulk of the dress, and the doorman said I couldn't use the social elevator with cargo. I swallowed hard. It was okay. The important thing was the dress. When the apartment door opened, I was hit by a smell of expensive perfume and loud laughter. Jasmine was in the living room. She looked beautiful, I can't deny that. Hair straightened, skin glowing, wearing a silk robe that looked like it cost about $300. But she wasn't alone. There were 3 friends with her. You know that type of woman who looks like she's never washed a dish in her life? Perfect nails, flawless makeup at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. They were sitting on the white leather sofa, drinking mimosas out of crystal glasses. "Mom?" Jasmine said, and her smile faltered. It wasn't a mom of joy. It was a mom of, "What are you doing here interrupting my brunch?" "Hi, my love," I said, walking in with my bundle in my arms, suddenly feeling very small, very old, and very poorly dressed. I brought you a surprise." The friends stopped laughing and just stared at me. One of them, a blonde with a stuck-up nose, whispered something to the other and gave a stifled giggle. I felt my face burn. "Surprise?" Jasmine asked, crossing her arms. She didn't offer a glass of water. Didn't ask me to sit down. "Mom, I'm kinda busy right now. We're discussing the registry at Bloomingdale's." "It's quick, honey," I insisted, placing the bundle on top of the glass coffee table. "I spent all night finishing it. I wanted you to be the first to see." Jasmine sighed, that impatient sigh we give when a child is bothering us. "Okay, Mom, what is it?" With hands trembling a little, maybe from the strong coffee, maybe from fear, I untied the knot of the sheet. I opened the ends slowly, revealing the white satin. The sun, coming through the huge living room window, hit the pearls I had embroidered. The dress revealed itself there, in the middle of that cold, fancy room. I looked at Jasmine, waiting for that sparkle in her eye she had when she was a little girl, and I made a new outfit for her doll, waiting for a hug, waiting for her to say, "Thank you, Mama." The silence in the room was deafening. You could hear the ice melting in the friends' glasses. Jasmine looked at the dress. She didn't touch it. She just looked. And then her upper lip curled in a sneer of disgust. "You know when you smell something bad in the fridge?" That was the face she made at my months of work. "What is this?" she asked, her voice icy. "It's your wedding dress, baby," I said, my voice cracking a little. "I made it for you. With that satin you liked in the window last year, remember? And I used the lace from Grandma's veil." One of the friends let out a loud laugh and covered her mouth with her hand, pretending it was an accident. "Oh, sorry, Jazz," the friend said. It's very rustic, isn't it?" Jasmine looked at her friend and then looked back at me. Her look cut me deeper than any scissors. "Mom?" she started, and her voice was full of a shame I had never heard before. "Are you serious? Did you really think I was going to wear this?" "But honey," I tried to argue, smoothing a pleat of the dress, as if I could fix the situation with my hands. "It was made to measure. I know your body better than anyone. Look at the embroidery, Jasmine. It's orange blossoms, like in our old backyard." "Orange blossoms?" she repeated with scorn. "Mom, look at this place. Look at me. I'm marrying an Ellington. His family owns half the commercial real estate in Atlanta. The wedding is going to be at the Grand Majestic. There are going to be photographers from Vogue. And you want me to walk in there dressed in In this glorified floor rag, I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. The air vanished. Floor rag. The dress that held my nights, my sweat, my prayers. Floor rag. Jasmine, that is cruel, I whispered. Cruel is you coming here and embarrassing me in front of my friends, she shot back, her voice rising. This here, she pointed at the dress with her freshly done gel nail, looks like something a poor person would wear, someone with no class. I'm not that girl from the West End anymore, Mom. I made it, and I'm not going to get married dressed like a seamstress. Her words echoed in the room. Dressed like a seamstress. As if my profession, the profession that put food on her table, that paid for her school books, that paid for her braces, as if that was a disease, a stain. Before I could process the pain, Jasmine did something unthinkable. She grabbed the dress by the shoulder fabric, right where I had reinforced the stitching with so much care, and lifted it like it was contaminated trash. She walked over to the open concept kitchen, where there was a large stainless steel trash can. No, I said, taking a step forward. Jasmine, don't do that. She didn't even hesitate. With the abrupt movement, she shoved the dress into the trash can. The white satin mixed with used coffee pods and napkins stained with lipstick. She pushed it down with her hand to make it all fit. There, she said, wiping her hands as if she had touched dust. Now please, Mom, take this old sheet away. I have to finish organizing my real wedding. My real dress arrives from Milan next week. It cost $12,000. That is a dress. I stood paralyzed. I looked at the trash can. I saw a piece of my mother's lace sticking out, stained with coffee grounds. Her friends went back to talking quietly, giggling, as if the scene of a daughter humiliating her mother was the morning entertainment. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab that dress, shake Jasmine by the shoulders, and remind her who cleaned her vomit when she was sick, who worked 16 hours a day so she could have that diploma on the wall. But my throat was closed. The lump was so big it physically hurt. I gathered the old sheet from the table, folded it carefully, slowly, because if I moved fast, I would crumble right there. And I had a rule. I would never, ever let those women see me cry. My pride was the only thing I had left in that moment. Bye, Jasmine, I said. My voice came out hoarse, unrecognizable. She didn't even look back. Bye, Mom. Close the door when you leave. I walked to the service elevator, stepped into the metal box, pressed the ground floor button, and only when the doors closed did I let the first tear fall. It burned my face. I walked to my car in the visitor parking lot. The sun outside was strong, a beautiful spring day in Atlanta, but I felt a terrible chill. My teeth were chattering. I got in the car, sat on that worn fabric seat, and gripped the steering wheel. I looked at the empty back seat, where minutes before my wrapped-up dream had been. I drove back home on autopilot. I didn't see the road. I saw the dress in the trash. The image wouldn't leave my head. The pure white stained with brown. The love discarded like it was worth nothing. I thought about Samuel. I thought about the day he died on the construction site, falling from a scaffold because the boss wanted to save money on safety equipment. I thought about how I was widowed at 28 with a 5-year-old girl to raise. I remembered the nights I had tea and toast for dinner so Jasmine could eat meat. I remembered when I sold my engagement ring to pay for her college tuition. When was it? I asked myself out loud inside the car. When did love become shame for her? I got home, to my little refuge in the West End. I went into the studio. The smell of machine oil and new fabric was still there. My red mug was still on the table, with a little bit of cold coffee at the bottom. I sat in the chair in front of the machine, ran my hand over the worn wood of the table. The machine's motor, when I stepped on the pedal just to test it, made that familiar sound. Vroom. But this time, it didn't sound like music. It sounded like a wail. It sounded like a mother crying. I stayed there, frozen, staring at nothing for a time I can't measure. The pain was so great, I thought I was going to die right there, of a broken heart. They say that exists, right? Broken heart syndrome. But then, something changed. I looked at a photo of Jasmine on the wall, a picture of her as a kid, missing teeth, smiling at me. And then I remembered her face today, the disgust, the contempt. Glorified floor rag. A tear dried on my cheek, then another. I took a deep breath. The air entered my lungs, cold and sharp. No, I wasn't going to die of sadness. I didn't raise a daughter for her to treat me like trash. I am Sylvia Jones. I survived widowhood, poverty, hunger, and prejudice. I wasn't going to let a spoiled girl, even if she is my daughter, step on my history. I felt a strange calm take over me. It wasn't peace. It was something colder, sharper. It was the calm of someone who decides they're not going to accept being the victim anymore. I got up from the chair, went to the kitchen, washed my face in the sink. The cold water woke me up. She threw the dress in the trash, said it was stuff for poor people. "All right, Jasmine," I said to the empty house. "You want to see what a seamstress can do? Then you're going to see." I grabbed the car keys again. The clock said 2:30 p.m. I knew Jasmine had Pilates at 3 p.m. She never missed it. The apartment would be empty, or maybe just with the cleaning lady, who knew me and liked me. I wasn't going to leave my dress in the trash. That dress had pieces of my soul sewn into it. And you don't leave your soul in the trash. I got in the car. This time, my hands weren't shaking. I gripped the steering wheel firmly. I was going to get what was mine. And then? Well, then I was going to teach my daughter the most important lesson of her life. A lesson you don't learn in an expensive college, nor at brunch with rich friends. I pressed the gas. The Ford's engine roared, seeming to understand my anger. I was going back to Buckhead, but not as the nice mom who brings gifts. I was going back as a woman who just had her heart broken and decided to use the shards to cut anyone who tried to step on her again. That dress wasn't going to end up in a dumpster. Oh, no it wasn't. It was going to have its moment of glory. And Jasmine? She was going to wish she never pronounced the word poor. I didn't go back home to cry. I went back home to grab my emergency key. You know that key we keep, swearing it's just in case the daughter loses hers or there's a leak in the apartment? Yeah. Jasmine thought I only had that key for safety. But that afternoon, that cold brass key in my hand felt like a weapon, a rescue tool. While I drove back to Buckhead, Atlanta's traffic seemed to have gotten worse, if that's even possible. The heat rose from the asphalt and made the air shimmer, distorting the view of the mirrored buildings in the distance. But I didn't feel hot. I felt a chill down my spine, an icy determination that made my hands steady on the wheel, without that old lady tremor that sometimes hits me when I get nervous. I wasn't nervous. I was on a mission. Look, guys, you need to understand something about me. I'm not one to break into people's houses. I was raised in the church. My daddy was a deacon. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not covet. I know the commandments by heart. But there's a commandment that ain't in the Bible, but every mother knows. Thou shalt not leave a piece of thy heart rotting in the garbage. And that dress was my heart. I parked the car 2 blocks away from her building. I didn't want the doorman, that same stuck-up boy, seeing my noisy Ford entering there again. I put on a cap, sunglasses, felt kind of ridiculous, looking like those spies from a bad afternoon movie, and walked. I knew Jasmine's routine by heart. Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. sharp, she has Pilates class at a super expensive studio, one of those that give you cucumber water at the entrance. She doesn't miss it. She says she needs to look skeletal for the wedding. Skeletal. What an ugly word, right? I always thought a beautiful bride is a healthy bride with color in her cheeks. But who am I? I'm just the seamstress. I stood on the corner, pretending to look at the window of a furniture store selling a sofa for the price of a compact car. And then I saw her. Her white Range Rover came out of the building's garage. She was driving, wearing those huge sunglasses that cover half the face. I saw she was alone. I waited for the car to turn the corner and disappear down Peachtree Avenue. I took a deep breath. "It's now, Sylvia," I whispered to myself. I entered the building. The afternoon doorman was someone else, an older gentleman named Mr. Henderson. Thank God. Mr. Henderson liked me. I had sewn a button on his coat for free last Christmas. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Sylvia," he smiled, touching the brim of his hat. "Come to visit the girl? She just left." "Hi, Mr. Henderson," I said, forcing my best, harmless grandma smile. "Yeah, silly me. She called saying she forgot an important folder for the wedding and asked me to go up and get it. You know how nervous brides are, right? He laughed. I sure do. My granddaughter got married last year. It was crazy. Go right up, ma'am. Your family. The elevator went up too fast. My stomach felt like it stayed on the ground floor. When the door opened on her floor, the hallway was silent. That silence of a rich place where you don't hear the neighbor, don't hear fighting, don't hear loud music. It's a silence that, to me, always seemed like loneliness. I put the key in the lock. My hand was sweating. Turned it. Click. The door opened. The apartment was in dim light. The blackout curtains were half closed to protect the expensive furniture from the sun. The smell was still there, that sweet, sickly smell of mimosas and the residual smell of Jasmine's expensive perfume. But underneath that, I smelled something else, the smell of betrayal. I walked straight to the living room. My shoes made a hollow sound on the hardwood floor. I felt like a thief in the house that, in a way, I helped pay for with every drop of my sweat. The trash can. There it was. It was a brushed steel trash can, one of those that open with a motion sensor, fancy even for holding garbage. I moved my hand close and the lid opened with a soft hum, as if inviting me to see the disgrace. And there it was. My God, y'all, the image of that. You know when you see a wounded animal on the road? That's what I felt. The white satin. That satin I chose by running my hand over dozens of rolls in the store until I found the perfect touch was bunched up, twisted, squeezed between espresso pods, lemon peels from the drinks, and paper napkins stained with red lipstick. My embroidery, the orange blossoms that took me 40 hours to make, were face down, resting against damp coffee grounds. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. In that moment, the pain was so sharp it went past the barrier of tears and turned into numbness. Carefully, as if I were disarming a bomb, I stuck my hands into that trash can. I didn't care about the filth. I didn't care about the sour smell of old lemon. I grabbed the fabric. It was heavy, damp in some parts. I pulled. The dress came out with a sucking sound, dragging a bit of trash with it. I held it against my chest. Yes, dirty as it was. I hugged that dress like I hugged Jasmine when she fell off her bike at 7 years old and scraped her whole face. I hugged it to ask for forgiveness. Forgiveness for having given it such a cruel fate. Forgiveness for having offered my love to someone who didn't know how to receive it. Let's go home, I whispered to the fabric. Mama's going to take care of you. I wrapped the dress haphazardly in my arms, protecting the dirtiest parts so they wouldn't stain the rest, and left that apartment. I didn't look back. Didn't close the curtain, didn't fluff the pillow. I left like a fugitive. In the car, I put the dress on the passenger seat. It looked like an injured passenger. The smell of coffee and trash invaded my car, fighting with the lavender scent I used to perfume the upholstery. The drive back to the West End was haunting. Not because of the traffic, but because of my mind. While I drove, every stain on that dress brought a memory, a flashback that hit me like a hammer. I looked at a dark brown stain on the hem, and suddenly, I wasn't in 2024 anymore. I was in 1998, the day of Samuel's funeral. Let me tell you this, because if you don't understand where I came from, you won't understand where I'm going. Samuel was a good man. Big hands, easy smile, smelled of sawed wood and kindness. He worked in construction. We didn't have much, but we had each other. Jasmine was 5. She was the light of his eyes. He used to say, "Sylvia, this girl is going to be a doctor. She's going to be somebody." That November morning, it was raining. You know that fine, cold rain that gets into your bones? The police knocked on the door. They didn't need to say anything. The way they took off their hats, I knew. He fell from a scaffold. Defective equipment. The owner of the site, a rich man who never got mud on his boots, said it was human error. Human error was him not spending $50 on a new safety belt. I was left alone, with a sewing machine, a little girl, and $12 in the bank account. $12. Do you know what it is to open the fridge and see only half a bottle of milk and an empty margarine tub? I looked at the road now, driving my old Ford, and the tears finally came, hot and salty. I remembered the hunger. Not mine I could handle. But hers, Jasmine, never knew. I swear to God, y'all, she never knew. There was a night, about 6 months after Samuel was gone. The bills were late, the power was going to be cut the next day. I had gotten a big job, a debutante dress for a doctor's daughter, but the payment would only come on delivery. In the pantry, there was a pack of noodles and 2 hot dogs. I cooked the noodles, cut the 2 hot dogs into very thin slices to make it look like there was a lot. I put it all on Jasmine's plate. "What about you, Mama?" she asked, with those big innocent eyes, holding the fork too big for her little hand. "Mama's not hungry, baby," I lied, smiling. "Mama had lunch very late today. I ate a feast at work, roast chicken, mashed potatoes. I'm full even now." My stomach growled so loud I had to cough to cover it up. I sat in front of her and drank a glass of warm sugar water to trick the dizziness, and watched her eat. Every bite she took, I felt fed. Because that's being a mother, isn't it? It's feeding off your child's fullness. And now that same girl, that girl who ate my noodles, threw my work in the trash because it looked like poor people stuff. The irony is that she's only not poor because I chose to be. I wore poverty like an old coat so she could wear wealth like a royal robe. I got home with blurred vision. I grabbed the dress from the passenger seat. It felt heavier now. Maybe because it carried not just the dirt, but the weight of all those memories. I went into the studio and locked the door. I needed to save that dress. Not for Jasmine, but for me. For the 28-year-old Sylvia who drank sugar water. For the Sylvia who sewed until her fingers bled to pay for the school field trip. I put the dress on my cutting table. The afternoon light came through the window, merciless, showing every detail of the destruction. There was coffee powder embedded in the lace. A grease stain on the satin. It was crushed, humiliated. "It's okay," I said out loud. "We fix it. We always fix it." I went to the supply closet and grabbed my secret weapon. "Look, I'm going to give you a golden tip right now. You know when you think a piece of clothing is lost? Don't give up." I grabbed that Rowenta vertical steamer of mine, the professional model I bought online in 12 installments. Guys, this machine is a miracle. It has steam power that gets into the fiber of the fabric and relaxes the dirt without damaging it, you know? It's an expensive investment for me, but worth every penny. I filled the tank with distilled water, plugged it in, and waited for the little bubbling sound. While the steamer heated up, I prepared a homemade solution my grandma taught me. White vinegar, baking soda, and a drop of mild detergent. With a cotton swab, yes, a cotton swab, because love is in the details, I started cleaning the coffee stains, millimeter by millimeter. It was surgical work. I rubbed gently, then came in with the Rowenta steamer and shh. The hot steam went through the fabric, lifting the dirt, renewing the shine of the satin. It was therapeutic. While I cleaned the dirt Jasmine threw on me, I felt like I was cleaning my subservience too. With every stain removed, a decision formed in my head. Jasmine said that dress was for poor people. She said it had no class. I looked at the clean dress hanging on the mannequin. It was still simple, beautiful, but simple. The simplicity I thought represented her purity. But Jasmine wasn't pure anymore. She had become complex, hard, shiny, and cold, like a fake diamond. If she wanted luxury, if she wanted something that looked expensive, I was going to give it to her, but not the way she thought. I remembered a box I had kept at the bottom of the closet, an old wooden box locked with a key. Inside it, I kept the precious scraps. They were pieces of vintage lace I bought in thrift stores over 30 years. Swarovski crystals I took off an old chandelier I found in a mansion's trash. Yes, I'm one of those. And check glass pearls I bought in an online auction years ago, thinking, one day I'll use this. The day was today. I poured the crystals onto the table. The sound of them hitting the wood was like a hailstorm. Plim, plim, plim. They shined, cold and hard. They were beautiful, but cutting, just like the truth I needed to face. The first thing I did was grab the scissors. My hand hesitated for a second. Cut the work I took months to make, but it was necessary. Ripe! The sound of the satin being opened was liberating. I cut the simple sleeves. I transformed the modest neckline into a deep, daring, almost dangerous neckline. I opened the back of the dress down to the waist because I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable, even while dressed in gala. I started working, and when I say working, I mean entering a trance. I didn't eat, I didn't shower, I only drank water and coffee. The hours passed outside, the sun rose and set, and I didn't even see it. But there was a problem. My eyes. Age comes for everyone, right? And working with tiny crystals and transparent thread at night was killing me. I strained my eyes and everything blurred. That's when I remembered my salvation. I got up, went to the corner, and pulled that floor lamp with a magnifying lens I bought online. Y'all, you need to hear this. This lamp is a blessing. It has a heavy base, so it doesn't tip over, and a flexible arm you pull right over your work. The magnifying lens is huge, real glass, and it has LED lights around it that don't heat up. I bought it on an American craft site because the reviews said it was Granny's best friend. And look, they didn't lie. When I turned on that cold white light and looked through the lens, every fiber of the fabric, every facet of the crystal became giant. I could see even the dust in the air. With the help of that wonderful lamp, I started embroidering. It wasn't ordinary embroidery. I wasn't just attaching stones, I was creating armor. I started with the hem. Layers and layers of vintage lace, lightly dyed with tea to give it an antique tone, a tone of history. And over the lace, the crystals. Every crystal I attached, I said a prayer, or maybe a curse, God forgive me. One stitch. This is for calling me poor. Another stitch. This is for being ashamed of my calloused hands. One more crystal. This is for the father you barely remember, but who died to give you a roof. My fingers bled. I swear to you. The needle slipped several times, pricking the tips of my already sensitive fingers. The blood, tiny red droplets, stained the inner lining. I didn't clean it. I left it there. The mother's blood is what gives life to the child, isn't it? So let my blood be part of that dress. But the hardest part wasn't the embroidery. It was what I decided to put inside it. I sat at my desk, pushed the scraps aside, and grabbed my stationery paper. That very thin paper, like tissue paper that crinkles when you touch it. I grabbed my favorite fountain pen. I needed to speak. I needed her to know. But I knew if I spoke, she would roll her eyes, check her phone, say, "Here comes Mom with her drama." So I decided she would wear my voice. I started writing notes, small, tight, with my cursive handwriting that the elementary school teacher praised in 1970. "Daughter, remember that winter we had no heater?" I said it was an adventure to sleep in the living room with all the blankets. It wasn't an adventure. It was lack of money to pay for gas. I hugged you all night so you wouldn't shiver. Today, it's you who makes me shiver with cold. I folded the paper until it was the size of a coin. With the help of my magnifying lamp, I undid a little piece of the lining right at chest height on the left side. I put the note inside and sewed it back. Invisible. But it was there. I wrote another. "You said you wished I had studied. I got into nursing school, Jasmine, in 1985. But then your father died, and I chose to buy diapers and milk instead of books. My degree is you, and honestly, I think I failed." This one I put in the hem so it would weigh on her walk. I wrote one more, and this was the hardest. My tears wet the paper, smudging the blue ink a little. "Your grandma used to say the thread that binds mother and daughter doesn't break. It just stretches. Ours stretched so much it's strangling me. I love you, my girl, but I don't like the woman you've become. I hope this dress reminds you of who you really are." I sewed this one in the back, right at the base of the spine, where we need support to stand up. It was 3 days and 3 nights. I dozed off sitting in the chair, woke up with a stiff neck, took a sip of cold coffee, and went back. I looked like a fairy tale witch weaving a spell, and in a way, I was. I was turning rags into treasure. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, I finished. I turned off the LED lamp. The room sat in the natural twilight of late afternoon. I lifted the mannequin and brought it to the middle of the room. Y'all, I lost my breath. The dress wasn't a dress anymore. It was an entity. It glowed with a light of its own, cold and silvery. The crystals captured every ray of light and returned it with an intensity that hurt the eyes. The vintage laces gave a richness and texture no money could buy. It looked heavy, majestic, ancient, and modern at the same time. It didn't look like something made in the West End. It looked like something stolen from a museum in Paris. But the most important thing wasn't the shine. It was the weight. I knew what was hidden inside there. The letters, the blood, the tears. Whoever wore that would carry my story on their skin. I went to the bathroom mirror, looked at myself. I was a wreck. Deep dark circles, messy hair, gray skin. But my eyes, oh, my eyes were on fire. I didn't see the sad widow anymore. I saw a warrior who just forged her sword. "It's ready, Samuel," I whispered to the mirror. "Our girl is going to have the wedding she wanted. And the lesson she deserves." I took a long shower, scrubbed the ink and glue off my fingers, washed my hair. While the water fell, I planned my attack. I wasn't invited. Of course I wasn't. Jasmine said it would be an intimate ceremony, but I saw on Facebook there were 300 guests. Intimate for whom? Only for those with a fat bank account, I guess. But a mother doesn't need an invitation. A mother is the foundation of the house. You don't invite the foundation to the party. It's simply there, holding everything up. I opened my wardrobe. I didn't have anything fancy, no designer stuff, but I had a dress I made for myself about 5 years ago for an Easter service. It was a cream dress, linen, straight cut, simple, elegant. Elegance is refusal, Coco Chanel said, right? I was going to refuse the shine. I was going to refuse the excess. I was going to be the blank canvas where Jasmine's shame would be painted. I ironed the dress with a hot iron, leaving it flawless. Starched the collar. Fixed my gray hair in a low bun, pulled back tight, not a hair out of place. I didn't wear makeup, just a nude lipstick and a little cream on my face. I put the transformed wedding dress, my monster of beauty, inside a black, opaque garment bag. No one could see. No one could know. I folded it carefully and put it inside a big bag, one of those fancy shopping totes I had saved. I looked at the clock. It was 7 p.m. The wedding started at 8 p.m. The Grand Majestic Ballroom was 40 minutes away. I grabbed the keys to my Ford. "Let's go, old friend," I said to the sewing machine before turning off the light. We did our part. Now it's up to fate. I locked the house. The night was hot and humid, typical Atlanta. The cicadas were singing loud. I got in the car, put the bag on the passenger seat like it was a VIP passenger, and took off. While I drove, I felt a mix of terror and excitement. What I was going to do was crazy. I was going to crash my daughter's wedding. Was I going to humiliate her? No. I was going to save her. Sometimes, to save someone from drowning in their own arrogance, you need to give them a push. The Grand Majestic appeared on the horizon, lit up like a palace. Valets in red vests ran to open doors of Mercedes and Bentleys. I stopped my 2008 Ford in the line. The valet looked at my car with that professional disdain, but I didn't care. I got out, handed him the key, and said, "Take good care of it. It's the only one I got." He took the key with the tips of his fingers. I grabbed my big bag, straightened my spine. Remembered every stitch, every hidden note, every drop of blood in the lining. Took a deep breath, feeling the freezing air conditioning coming out of the open doors of the hall. I was ready. The seamstress from the West End had arrived in Buckhead, and nothing, and no one, was going to stop me from going in. The Grand Majestic Ballroom didn't get that name for nothing. As soon as I stepped into the lobby, I was swallowed by an excess of gold and crystal that was almost aggressive. The ceiling was so high, it seemed to have its own weather, with chandeliers that must weigh more than my car hanging like drops of frozen light. The floor was marble so polished I could see the reflection of my tired soul in it. And the smell, oh, the smell. A mix of expensive lilies, champagne, and old money. I squeezed the strap of my bag against my shoulder. Inside it, the dress weighed heavy, not just physically, but emotionally. I felt like an intruder, a stain of simplicity in a sea of ostentation. Women passed by me dragging silk trains wrapped in clouds of imported perfume, with jewelry that sparkled so much it hurt to look. Men, in their black tuxedos, looked like arrogant penguins, laughing with that guttural sound of someone who's never been afraid of an overdue bill. No one looked at me. Or rather, they looked through me. You know that invisibility you get when you pass 60 and don't have a Louis Vuitton bag on your arm? I was furniture. I was part of the decor, maybe an elderly employee who forgot her uniform. I walked to the entrance of the main hall. There was a wedding planner at the door, a young woman with an electronic tablet and a headset, looking like a stressed air traffic controller. "Name, please," she asked without looking up from the screen. "Sylvia Jones," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm the mother of the bride." The girl stopped. Her finger froze over the screen. She looked up slowly, scanning me from head to toe. I saw her gaze pass over my simple cream linen dress, my unbranded shoes, my homemade bun. I saw the doubt, then the pity, and finally, the embarrassment. "Oh," she said, her voice going up an octave. "Mrs. Jones, of course, Jasmine. Mrs. Ellington mentioned you might not make it. Might not make it. That's polite code for wasn't invited, but if she shows up, don't make a scene." "Well, honey, I changed my mind," I smiled, a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Mothers are like that, unpredictable. She swallowed hard and signaled a waiter. "Please, escort Mrs. Jones to—" She hesitated, looking at the seating chart on the screen. "To table 42. It's over there, near the service exit. It's more private. Table 42, near the kitchen, where the noise of dishes would drown out my existence." I nodded. I wasn't going to fight now. My fight wasn't with the wedding planner. I entered the hall. It was an ocean of round tables with gold damask tablecloths. In the center, an empty dance floor awaited the bride and groom. And way in the back, on a raised altar covered in white orchids, there she was, Jasmine. My heart skipped a beat. She was back to me, talking to someone. She was wearing the dress, the real dress, the import from Milan. It was pretty, I won't lie. It was a mermaid style, all chantilly lace, tight on the body. But it was cold. It was a dress that screamed, "I cost a lot," but didn't whisper, "I was loved." It had no history. It was just a product. And on her, it looked like a costume. Jasmine was playing a role, the role of the trophy wife, the rich woman. But I, who knew the curve of her shoulders, saw the tension. I saw how she moved her hands nervously. Suddenly, a shadow blocked my view. Well, well, if it isn't the seamstress. The voice was unmistakable. Beverly Ellington, the groom's mother, the matriarch, the woman who made the devil look like an amateur. I turned around. Beverly was standing in front of me like a tower of ice. She was wearing a long silver dress that looked like it was made of liquid metal. Her neck was wrapped in diamonds that could feed the West End for a year. Her blonde hair, dyed and lacquered, was motionless like a helmet. "Good evening, Beverly," I said, gripping my bag tighter. She didn't return the greeting. Instead, she took a step forward, invading my personal space, and lowered her voice to a poisonous whisper. "What are you doing here, Sylvia? Jasmine assured me you had the good sense to stay home." "It's my daughter's wedding," I replied, holding her gaze. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." Beverly let out a dry little laugh, sounding like a cough. "Daughter. It's curious you use that word. Jasmine doesn't seem to have much in common with you, thank God. She has ambition, refinement, things that clearly skipped a generation." I felt my blood boil, but kept my expression neutral. I learned, over years of sewing for women like her, that the best answer to arrogance is dignified silence. "Look at you," she continued, subtly pointing to my dress with her champagne glass. "This rag? Is it linen? My God, Sylvia, this is a black tie event. The waiters are better dressed than you. You are embarrassing Jasmine. If you have a shred of love for her, you'll sit way in the back, stay quiet, and at the first opportunity, leave through the back door. No one needs to know the mother of the bride looks like she came to clean up." Every word was a stab, but I didn't bleed, because I knew what I had in my bag. I knew her luxury was bought, but mine was built. "Don't worry, Beverly," I said, with a calm that surprised her. "I know exactly what my place is here, and you'll see." She frowned, suspicious, but before she could say anything else, the music changed. The ceremony was starting. She turned her back on me and floated towards the front row where the seat of honor awaited her. I walked to table 42. It was, in fact, the worst table, located behind a pillar near the swinging kitchen door. I sat alone. The other chairs were empty, probably reserved for distant cousins who didn't show up. The ceremony began. I had to crane my neck to see. I saw Jasmine walk to the altar alone. My chest hurt. Her father should have been there. Or me. But she chose to walk alone, to prove she was self-made, that she owed nothing to anyone. What a sad lie. I watched her exchange vows with the boy, that Preston Ellington. He seemed like a good kid, kinda goofy, kinda dominated by his mother, but he looked at Jasmine with affection. At least that. During the exchange of rings, Jasmine looked at the audience. Her gaze swept the room, past the front rows, the rich friends, and for a second, a brief second, her eyes met mine way in the back, in the shadows. I saw it. I saw the fear. She knew I was there, and she was terrified I would do something poor, that I would scream or cry loudly or spill soup on my clothes. She looked away quickly, as if she had seen a ghost. The ceremony ended. Applause, photos. I stayed at my table, invisible. No one came to greet me. "Are you the bride's mother?" No one asked. I was just an old lady alone at a bad table. Dinner was served, tiny plates with French names I couldn't pronounce. I didn't eat. My stomach was in knots. I just drank water and watched the fakeness, the yellow smiles, the conversations about trips to the Maldives and the stock market. It was an empty world, shiny but hollow. My feet started to hurt. I had been standing or sitting in a tense position for hours. And here goes another survival secret. I never go anywhere without my orthopedic gel insoles. You know the ones you buy online, that promise walking on clouds. I bought a pair of Dr. Scholl's or similar, those blue ones with arch support. I put them inside my low-heel shoes before leaving the house. And look, it was a lifesaver. Because I knew that soon I was going to need to stand tall, firm, without limping, without showing weakness. Those insoles gave me the physical support I needed, since the emotional one was hanging by a thread. I felt the gel cushioning my weight, reminding me, you have a base, Sylvia. You have ground. The clock on the wall hit 9 p.m. It was speech time. The groom's father spoke, a boring speech about corporate mergers and uniting empires. Then the maid of honor, one of those brunch friends, spoke about how Jasmine was a style icon. Everyone applauded. And then the DJ announced, "And now we would like to invite the mother of the bride for—" There was an awkward silence. The DJ looked at a paper, confused. Jasmine had cut that part of the schedule. I saw her making a cut sign with her hand, desperate, whispering something to the groom. Beverly was livid. "Sorry," the DJ corrected, stuttering. "Let's move on to the first dance." That was my cue. I stood up. The chair scraped the floor with a sharp sound. I grabbed my bag, took the dress out of the black cover, but kept it folded in my arms, hiding the shine. I started walking. I didn't walk fast. I walked with the rhythm of someone who has sewn her whole life, one stitch at a time. I passed the tables. People started to look. The murmuring began. Who is that? Is it the help? What is she doing? I heard it all. But I didn't care. My gel insoles cushioned my firm steps. My spine was straight, supported by years of hard work. Jasmine saw me. She was in the middle of the dance floor with Preston. The music was an Ed Sheeran ballad. When she saw me coming towards her, she stopped. Her face turned gray. The socialite mask fell, revealing the scared girl from the West End. Beverly stood up from the head table, knocking over a glass. "Security!" she hissed, but loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Get this woman out of here!" But it was too late. I was already in the middle of the floor. The DJ, not understanding anything, lowered the music until it became a whisper and then silence. I stopped 3 meters from my daughter. The entire hall, with its 300 guests, fell into absolute silence. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning. Jasmine was trembling. "Mom, what are you doing?" she whispered, her voice choked with tears and shame. "Please, go away. Don't ruin everything." I looked at her. looked at the Italian lace dress, looked at the confused groom, looked at the furious Beverly coming towards us. "I didn't come to ruin anything, Jasmine." My voice came out clear, projected, without a microphone but filling the room. It was the voice of someone who sang in a church choir for 40 years. "I just came to return something that belongs to me." "What are you talking about?" Beverly shouted, getting close. "Leave right now before I call the police." I ignored Beverly. My eyes were fixed on my daughter. "You threw it away," I said, and my voice trembled just a tiny bit. "You said it was stuff for poor people, that it had no value, that it embarrassed you." Jasmine closed her eyes, tears running down her perfect makeup. "But I am a mother," I continued, "and a mother doesn't throw anything away. A mother recycles. A mother fixes. A mother transforms pain into something new." And then, with a dramatic movement I didn't know I was capable of, I let go of the fabric I was holding. The dress unrolled. Y'all, it was like someone had turned on a spotlight. The Swarovski crystals under the ballroom lights exploded in brilliance. The dress looked like it was made of stars. The vintage laces, now dyed and layered, gave a depth and texture no money could buy. The daring neckline, the open back, the hand-embroidered train. It was a work of art. It was aggressive. It was beautiful. It was painful. A collective gasp swept the room. "Ooh!" Even Beverly stopped, mouth open, eyes fixed on the dress. She understood luxury, and she knew in that instant that she was looking at something worth more than her house. Jasmine opened her eyes. She looked at the dress I held high, like a victory flag. She recognized the fabric, but she didn't recognize the soul. "Mom," she sobbed, is that the dress?" "This is the dress," I said, feeling the tears run down my face now, without shame. "This is the floor rag. I took 3 nights, cut my fingers, bled into this lining. I put crystals where you put contempt. I put lace where you put shame. I took a step forward, offering the dress not for her to wear, but for her to see. You wanted to look rich, Jasmine. You wanted to shine, but you forgot that real shine comes from inside, comes from work, comes from love. This dress is worth more than everything in this room, because it was paid for with your mother's life." The silence was so heavy, it felt solid. No one moved. The groom, Preston, looked from me to the dress and then to Jasmine with an expression of shock and maybe disappointment with his wife. Jasmine collapsed. Her legs gave out. She fell to her knees on the marble floor, the Milan dress spreading around her like useless foam. She covered her face with her hands and started to cry. An ugly, loud, desperate cry, the cry of someone who realizes they traded a diamond for glass. "Forgive me, Mama," she sobbed, going back to calling me Mama for the first time in years. "Forgive me. I'm horrible." I looked at her there, on the floor. My girl. My heart wanted to run, hug, lift her up, say it was okay. But I couldn't. If I did that now, she would never learn. Love, sometimes, needs to be tough to be saving. Beverly tried to intervene, putting her hand on Jasmine's shoulder, but Jasmine pulled away sharply, rejecting the rich mother-in-law's comfort. She reached out her hand to me. "Mom, please." I held the dress against my chest one more time, looked at her with infinite sadness. "There is no shame in being humble, Jasmine," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The shame is in forgetting who taught you to fly. You wanted to fly high, my daughter, but you cut your own roots. And a tree without roots falls." She tried to get up, tried to come to me. "Mom, wait!" I stepped back. "Not yet," I said firmly. "Not until you learn what it really means to love. Not until you understand the weight of this dress." I turned my back. It was the hardest thing I ever did in my life, turning my back on my crying daughter on her wedding day. But I knew I was stitching her soul in that moment. I walked towards the exit. The sea of people parted. No one dared to stop me. No one laughed. I saw respect in the eyes of some, tears in the eyes of others. I saw shame in Beverly Ellington's eyes. I left the hall with my head held high, my gel insoles cushioning my firm steps, taking my dress of tears and diamonds with me. The sound of my daughter's sobs stayed behind, echoing in the golden hall. I got to the lobby. The night air hit my face. The valet ran to get my car, looking at me now with a deference he didn't have before. I got into my old Ford. Put the dress on the seat next to me. "Let's go home," I whispered. I drove through the Atlanta night, feeling empty and full at the same time. I had broken my daughter's heart so it could heal the right way. I got home, locked the door, and did the only thing I could do. I hung the dress on my bedroom mirror. It glowed in the darkness, ghostly and beautiful. I went to the kitchen, made tea. The phone started ringing. It was Jasmine's number. I let it ring. It rang once, twice, 10 times. Then it stopped. I knew she would come. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but she would come. Because inside that dress, hidden in the lining, was the red thread, the thread that connects us. And she was going to have to follow that thread back home, back to me, back to who she really was. I sat in the armchair, looking at the dress, and waited. The storm had passed. Now, it remained to wait and see what would be left standing after the rain. The phone stopped ringing around 4 a.m. The silence that followed in my house in the West End was louder than any scream. I sat in the living room armchair, the same armchair where I nursed Jasmine, where I read her bedtime stories, where I waited for her to come back from her first date. The wedding dress, my masterpiece of revenge and love, hung on the bedroom door, glowing in the gloom like a lighthouse. I didn't sleep. How could I? The image of my daughter on her knees in the middle of that luxurious ballroom, crying in her Italian lace dress while I walked out, was tattooed on the back of my eyelids. I wondered if I had gone too far. A mother forgives, the saying goes, but a mother also educates. And that was the most expensive lesson I ever paid for. I spent the next 2 days like a ghost in my own house. I didn't turn on the sewing machine, didn't answer the door. My neighbor, Miss Claudia, came knocking asking if I was okay because she saw my car parked and the curtains drawn. I yelled that I had the flu. A lie. I was in mourning. Mourning for the daughter I thought I had, and anxious for the birth of the daughter who, maybe, just maybe, could emerge from the rubble of that party. Late in the afternoon of the second day, the Atlanta sky turned gray, heavy, announcing a storm. It started to rain. That thick summer rain that washes the sidewalk. And then, I heard it. It wasn't a knock on the door. It was a shy sound, almost a scratch. I went to the window and peeked through the crack in the curtains. There she was, Jasmine. But it wasn't the Jasmine from Buckhead. It wasn't Mrs. Davis Ellington. It was my baby girl. She was standing in the rain, without an umbrella. Her straightened, expensive hair was plastered to her head, curling back up at the roots. She wore jeans and a baggy t-shirt and clutched a small overnight bag against her chest. She looked like she had shrunk about 4 inches. My mother's heart wanted to open the door and pull her inside right then, but I held back, took a deep breath. I put on that long-lasting matte red lipstick I bought online, you know? The one you put on in the morning and can drink coffee, eat, cry, and it doesn't come off. I needed it. I needed my mouth to look firm, not to tremble. The red lipstick was my war paint. I looked in the hall mirror, saw the vibrant color on my lips and thought, "Be strong, Sylvia." I opened the door. Jasmine lifted her head. Her eyes were swollen, red, almost shut from crying so much. Her mascara wasn't smeared because she wasn't wearing any. For the first time in years, I saw her clean face, the freckles she always tried to hide with expensive foundation showing. "Mama," she said. Her voice was a wisp. I said nothing. Just stepped aside, making way. She came in. The smell of rain and ozone came in with her. She stood on the entryway rug, dripping water, afraid of dirtying the floor. The irony didn't escape me. Days ago, she thought I was the dirt in her house. Can I come in?" she asked, looking at her own wet feet. "You're already in, Jasmine," I said, my voice calm, controlled by the effect of the red lipstick. "Take off your wet shoes. I don't want mud on my floor." She obeyed immediately, kicking off her brand-name sneakers into a corner like she was a child coming home late from the street. She walked to the living room and stopped. Her eyes went straight to the dress hanging on the door. She let out a sob, covering her mouth with her hand. I read them, Mom, she said, her voice choked. I read the letters. I froze. I knew she would read them. But hearing her say it, how? I asked. After you left, she started, shivering from cold or emotion. The wedding ended right there. Preston, he just looked at me like he didn't know me. Beverly started screaming that you were crazy, that you should be committed. But I couldn't stop looking at the door you walked out of. I took the car, Mom. I drove here that same night, but I didn't have the courage to knock. I stood on the street, looking at your window. She paused, swallowing a cry. And then I remembered what you said, about the dress having your story. I knew you don't do anything without a purpose. I went home, to that empty, cold house, and I remembered you always hid things in linings. Remember? When I was little, you hid coins in the lining of my coats for emergencies. I nodded, remembering. I grabbed some scissors, she continued, and started feeling the dress that was in the trash. No, Mom, wait, I didn't take the one from the trash. I came here yesterday when you went out to buy bread. The back door was open. My eyes went wide. You broke into my house? I needed to see the dress, she confessed. The dress you restored. I came in here, saw it hanging, and I felt it. Felt the paper in the lining. I undid a tiny bit of stitching, Mom, just a tiny bit, and I pulled out the first note. She reached into the pocket of her wet jeans and pulled out a crumpled, almost falling apart piece of paper. Sold my wedding ring to pay for your first semester, she read, and collapsed on the sofa, crying heavily. Mom, I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know. I thought the money came from Daddy's insurance. I thought we had money saved. I approached her slowly. Your father's insurance barely paid for the funeral, Jasmine. Everything you had, every book, every outfit, every tuition, was sewn. It was sweated for. She lifted her face, tears running freely. I'm a monster. I threw your sacrifice in the trash. I said you were poor, but I'm the poor one, Mom. I'm poor in spirit. I'm poor in love. Preston. He left the house. He said he couldn't stay married to someone who treats their own mother like that. He said he saw my soul when you held up that dress, and it was ugly. That hurt me. I wanted to teach her a lesson, not destroy her marriage, but maybe the marriage was already destroyed before it began, built on appearances. And Beverly? I asked. Jasmine laughed, a sad laugh. Beverly said she was going to sue you for moral and emotional damages. She said you ruined the Ellington reputation. I told her to go to hell, Mom. For the first time in my life, I told Beverly Ellington to shut up. I felt a pang of pride. There it was, the root that was still alive. And now? I asked. Now I have nowhere to go, she said, looking around the simple room. Preston asked for time. I can't stay in that apartment in Buckhead. It smells like lies. Can I stay here? Just for a few days? I'll sleep on the sofa. I'll help around the house. I'll learn to sew if you want. Just don't send me away. I looked at my daughter. The arrogance was gone. The class was gone. What was left was a broken human being, asking for comfort. Pride is inherited, Jasmine, I said softly. You got that from me. It took me a long time to learn to lower my head, too. I went to the hallway closet and grabbed a sheet set I had bought online on sale. They were microfiber, gray, very soft. You know those ones they say have a peach touch? Those ones. I kept them for guests, but I never had guests. You're not sleeping on the sofa, I said, tossing the bundle of sheets to her. Your old room is still there. It's a twin bed, but the mattress is good. Jasmine hugged the bundle of sheets like it was treasure. Thank you, Mama. Thank you. That night, dinner was quiet. I made a simple vegetable soup with toast. Jasmine ate it all, scraping the plate. It's delicious, she said. Better than the buffet at the Grand Majestic. Hunger is the best spice, I replied, remembering the hard times. Mom, she said, putting down her spoon. I always thought you were weak, because you accepted everything. The rich clients treating you badly, us living with little. I thought you had no ambition. I wanted to be different from you. I wanted to be strong. But now I know you weren't weak. You were just tired. Tired of carrying the world so I could play princess. I smiled, a tired but true smile. Love is tiring, daughter. Love is damn tiring. But we rest, and love again the next day. We went to sleep. I heard Jasmine crying softly in the next room for a while, until the silence of the house embraced her. The next day, I woke up to the smell of coffee. Jasmine was in the kitchen, wearing one of my aprons, trying to make coffee in my old coffee maker. "Good morning," she said, kind of awkward. "I tried to make it like yours, but I think it's weak." "It's great," I said, accepting the cup. We spent the day in a strange but healing routine. She cleaned the house while I sewed. She didn't complain. She watched my hands working. "Can you teach me?" she asked in the afternoon, pointing to the machine. "To do that stitch, the invisible stitch?" "Humility is learned, Jasmine," I said, handing her a needle and a scrap. "And you've already made the first stitch." We were sitting there, her trying to thread the needle with a concentrated frown, when the phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. "Hello? Sylvia Jones?" The voice on the other end was icy, aristocratic, but had a slight tremor. I recognized it immediately. "Beverly?" Jasmine looked up, eyes wide. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice hardening. "We need to talk," Beverly said. It wasn't a request. It was a summons. But unlike other times, it didn't seem to come from up on a pedestal. It seemed to come from someone holding on so they wouldn't fall. "Dinner, tonight, at my house, just the two of us. I have nothing to talk to you about," I said, ready to hang up. "It's about Samuel," she said. My finger froze on the end button. The world stopped. "What did you say?" I whispered. "Samuel Jones," she repeated, and I heard a shaky breath on the other end of the line. "Your husband, Jasmine's father." "Please, Sylvia, come. There are things that have been kept for 29 years and are rotting, just like that dress in the trash. I need to return something that isn't mine." I looked at Jasmine, who was staring at me with concern. "Mom, what is it? You're pale." "I'm coming," I said to the phone. At 8 p.m. I hung up. My hand was shaking. Samuel. What did that woman, that rich viper from Buckhead, know about my Samuel? He was a bricklayer. She was an heiress. Their worlds didn't touch, or did they? "What did she want, Mom?" Jasmine asked, holding my arm. "She wants dinner," I said, staring at nothing. "She said it's about your father." Jasmine frowned. "My father? But he died when I was 5. What does Beverly have to do with him?" "That's what I'm going to find out," I said. I went to the room to get ready. This time, I didn't put on the simple linen. I put on a black silk blouse I had made years ago and never worn, and perfect tailored trousers. I grabbed that structured faux leather handbag of mine I bought at a discount online store. It looks very expensive, has a heavy gold clasp, and impeccable finish. I needed to feel armored. That bag was my shield. I put in my phone, my wallet, and, instinctively, the photo of Samuel I carry in my wallet. "Do you want me to go with you?" Jasmine asked, leaning on the doorframe. "No," I answered. "This is between me and her. And whatever it is, I feel like I need to hear it alone." I drove to the Ellington mansion. It was a house that looked like a set from Gone with the Wind. White columns, impeccable garden. I rang the doorbell. Beverly herself opened the door. She wasn't in black tie today. She was wearing beige pants and a white shirt, and she looked smaller, older. The wrinkles around her mouth were marked, without the heavy makeup to hide them. "Come in," she said, without the usual venom. The house was too quiet. We went into a smaller, intimate dining room. The table was set for 2. There were no servants. "I dismissed the staff," she said, pouring wine into a glass for me. "I didn't want witnesses." "For what, Beverly?" I asked, not touching the wine. "For more insults? To offer me money to disappear from your son's life?" She laughed humorlessly. "My son. Preston is weak, Sylvia. He's weak because I made him that way, just like my mother made me. But you made Jasmine strong, even when she tried to be weak. I saw that at the wedding. That dress," she stopped, looking at the red wine. "That dress reminded me of something, of someone." I waited. The grandfather clock in the corner of the room went tick-tock, marking the time of my anxiety. 30 years ago, Beverly began, voice low, my mother had a tailor shop downtown. Ellington's Fine Tailoring. Do you remember? My spine chilled. I remembered. Of course I remembered. It was my first job when I arrived in Atlanta, newly married to Samuel. I worked in the back, doing hems. I worked there, I said, voice failing. I was fired, the owner's daughter. She said I had stolen a spool of silk thread, humiliated me in front of everyone, and sent me away without paying me for the week. I looked at Beverly. Her blue eyes were full of tears. That daughter was me, she whispered. The air left my lungs. You? I was young, arrogant, and cruel, she said. I was jealous of your talent. My mother always said, "Look how that girl sews, Beverly. Why don't you learn?" And I hated you for it. So I invented the theft. I stood up, the anger of 30 years ago returning with full force. Do you have any idea what you did? We went hungry that week, Beverly. Samuel had to work overtime in the rain, and that's when he caught the pneumonia that... I stopped. No, Samuel didn't die of pneumonia. He died in the accident. But that week without pay was the start of a spiral of debt that chased us for years. I know, she said, lowering her head. I know I can't fix the past. But when I saw you at the wedding, in that dress, I recognized you. The hands, the way you held the fabric, the dignity. And I realized I'm the villain in this story, Sylvia. I always have been. She got up and went to a sideboard, grabbed a leather folder. I want to fix this. Here is a contract. I want to fund a studio for you. The biggest and best studio in Atlanta. You're going to teach, going to create, going to have the recognition I tried to steal from you. No cost. It's yours. I looked at the folder. It was the dream of my life. A studio. Teaching other women. I don't want your dirty money, I said. It's not dirty money. It's guilt money. And believe me, it's the heaviest money there is, she retorted. Please, Sylvia, accept it. Let me do one thing right before I die. I hesitated, thought of Jasmine, thought of the women in the West End who needed a trade, thought of my mother. I accept, I said slowly. But on one condition. The name of the studio will be Hope. Hope. My mother's name. Beverly nodded, relieved. Done. Hope Studio. I grabbed my structured bag, ready to leave. I had gotten what I wanted. Justice. Reparation. But then, when I reached the door, I stopped. Something didn't fit. The story of the thread theft. It was bad. Yes. But it didn't explain the tremor in her voice when she said Samuel's name on the phone. It didn't explain the look of despair. I turned around. Beverly was still standing in the dining room, back turned, shoulders slumped. Beverly, I said. She turned. You said it was about Samuel. The firing was about me. What do you have to do with my husband? Beverly's face went white as paper. She held onto the table so she wouldn't fall. I thought the studio would be enough, she mumbled. Enough for what? To buy your silence? I took a step towards her. What do you know, Beverly? She started to cry. Not the restrained cry of a society lady, but an ugly, painful cry. I loved him, she sobbed. The world stopped turning. What? Samuel, she said, the name coming out like a prayer. He worked in maintenance at the tailor shop building. He was the only person who treated me like a human being, not like the Ellington heiress. He was kind. He talked about you all the time. My Sylvia this, my Sylvia that. And I was envious of how he loved you. I was frozen. I never told him, she continued fast, as if she needed to vomit the words. I swear, he never knew. He was faithful to you to the bone. But the day of the accident, you were there? My voice was a whisper. I was at the hospital, she confessed. My family owned the construction company. When they heard about the accident, they sent me there to hush it up, to make sure no one sued. I arrived before you, Sylvia. I saw him on the stretcher. He was going. Tears streamed down my face. I never made it in time. When I arrived, he was already gone. He called me, Beverly said, shaking. He thought I was a nurse. He handed me something. He said, "For Sylvia, please. It's all I have." She reached into the neckline of her shirt and pulled out a yellowish envelope, worn by time, stained with something dark that looked like dried blood. I stole this, she said, extending the envelope to me with a trembling hand. I kept it because I was angry at you, because he thought of you in his last breath and not of himself. I kept this for 29 years, Sylvia. I read it, and every word of this letter burned me inside every day. I looked at the envelope, his handwriting. For my beloved Sylvia. You stole my husband's last words? The rage I felt was so great I could have destroyed that mansion with my bare hands. Yes, she whispered, and I've lived in hell ever since. The studio. It's not for the job you lost. It's for this. It's the price of my sin. I snatched the envelope from her hand. The paper was old, fragile. It was the last thing he touched. You are a despicable woman, Beverly, I said. No money in the world pays for this. I know, she said, falling into a chair. I know. I looked at the letter, looked at Beverly, destroyed by guilt, and I remembered the phrase I sewed into Jasmine's dress. The thread that binds doesn't break, it just stretches. The thread of truth had stretched for 29 years, but finally, it had come back to me. I hugged the letter against my chest. I wasn't going to read it there. I was going to read it at home, in my sanctuary. The studio is happening, I said, cold. And you will pay every penny, not as a gift, but as a debt. And Jasmine will never know her mother-in-law stole her father's goodbye, because unlike you, I protect the ones I love. I turned my back and left the mansion. The night was starry. I got in the car, put the letter on the passenger seat next to my structured bag. The weight of that paper was greater than the whole world. Samuel was coming back to me. After 29 years, he was coming home. I started the car. My hands were shaking, but my heart was strangely calm. Because now I had the piece that was missing in my puzzle. And I was going to sew the end of this story with the strongest thread there is, the truth. The yellowed envelope burned on the passenger seat of my old Ford. I was driving back to the West End, but my head was in 1995, in a hospital smelling of antiseptic and despair. For 29 years, I thought Samuel had left without saying goodbye. I thought the last thing he saw was the gray sky of a construction site. But no, the last thing he did was write to me. And that woman stole that from me. I got home with wobbly legs. Jasmine was already asleep or pretending to sleep. I went into my room, locked the door, and sat on my bed, that same bed I once shared with him. I turned on the lamp. My hands shook so much I almost tore the fragile paper trying to open the envelope. Inside, there were 2 sheets of notebook paper, lined with that handwriting of his, slanted and strong, but shaky at the end. And along with the pages, a piece of thread, a red thread, thick wool. I started reading. My Sylvia, if you are reading this, it's because the fall was bad. I am so sorry. Sorry for leaving you alone with our girl. I promised I would take care of you, that I would build that house with a porch you dreamed of. I failed, my love. I failed. But I need to tell you something. I left something for you guys. It's not much, but it's our start. Remember that little tin safe we buried in your mother's backyard before we sold it? I never dug it up. I kept putting money there, every overtime, every odd job. It's there, Sylvia. It's Jasmine's college fund. And about this red thread, it's the first thread you used to sew her little sock when she was born. I kept it. I kept it because you said red is the color of life. And I wanted to have a piece of your lives in my pocket, to give me luck. I guess the luck ran out today, but the love didn't. Sylvia, there's a girl here in the hospital, a rich blonde, the boss's daughter. She's looking at me with pity. She thinks I'm poor. Little does she know I'm the richest man in the world because I had you. Take care of our girl, teach her to be strong like you, and don't cry too much for me, okay? I'll be in every stitch you make. Love you. Samuel. I cried like I hadn't cried since the day of the funeral. A cry of relief, of pain, of longing. He hadn't forgotten me. He had left a future for Jasmine. That money, if it had earned interest in a bank, it would be a fortune. But buried, it was just money, but it was love money. And the red thread. I grabbed the piece of wool. Did it still have his smell? No, of course not. But it had his energy. I kept the letter and the thread in my box of relics. That night, I slept holding the box against my chest. I dreamed of Samuel. He was smiling, wearing his work overalls and holding out his hand to me. Let's sew. he said. The next day, real life knocked on the door. Literally. It was an express courier. A large package coming from the Ellington family's law office. Jasmine answered. Mom, it's for you. I opened the package on the kitchen table. It was the contracts for Hope Studio. And a check. A check with so many zeros, I had to count twice. It was Beverly's initial donation. What is this? Jasmine asked, looking at the amount over my shoulder. Mom, this is a lot of money. Beverly gave you this? Why? I looked at my daughter. She was still fragile, eyes swollen. I couldn't tell the truth about the letter. Not now. She had already lost her husband, her home, her dignity. Taking away the perfect image of her ex-husband's family would be cruelty. It's an investment, I said, putting the check away. Beverly Ellington decided she wants to support women entrepreneurs. She's going to fund my studio. Your studio? Jasmine's eyes lit up. The one you always dreamed of? Yes, Hope Studio, and you're going to help me run it. Jasmine smiled, a shy smile, but a real one. Me? But I don't know anything about sewing, Mom. You know marketing. You know social media. You know branding. Isn't that how you say it? I winked. I make the clothes. You make the name. And that's how our new life began. The following weeks were frantic. We rented a beautiful space in the West End, an old warehouse with exposed brick and huge windows. We bought new machines, industrial, modern, and huge cutting tables. I bought ergonomic chairs for the students, because I knew how much backs hurt. Jasmine took care of all the visuals. She created a beautiful logo, a gold needle with a thread forming the word Hope. The grand opening was set for a spring Saturday. Jasmine ran a campaign on social media, and, to my surprise, a lot of people confirmed attendance. People from the neighborhood, people from church, and even some of those rich friends of hers from Buckhead, curious to see Jasmine's rebirth. On the night before the opening, I was in the studio, finishing arranging the threads on the shelves by color. Jasmine came in, carrying 2 pizza boxes. Dinner break, boss, she said, laughing. We sat on the studio floor, eating pizza straight from the box. Mom, Jasmine said, wiping a string of cheese from her chin. Preston called me today. I stopped chewing. And? He wants to come back, said he missed me, said his mother is acting weird, depressed, and that he realized life is short. And what did you say? I asked, trying not to sound anxious. I said no. My eyes widened. No, but honey, he's rich. He loves you. He loves the Jasmine from Buckhead, she said, shaking her head. The Jasmine who wore designer dresses and pretended to be who she wasn't. That Jasmine died, Mom. You killed her in that ballroom. And it was the best thing you ever did. She looked around the studio. I like who I am here. With you. Smelling like pizza and fabric. I don't want to be a trophy, Mom. I want to be useful. I felt a pride so big it almost didn't fit in my chest. I hugged my daughter right there, on the floor, with flowery hands. You are useful, my love. You are essential. On the day of the opening, Hope Studio was packed. Women from the neighborhood signed up for cutting and sewing classes. Young designers wanted to use the space. And there in the corner, discreetly, was Beverly Ellington. She looked thinner, more fragile. She came over to me when the crowd dispersed a bit. It looks beautiful, Sylvia, she said, looking around. Samuel would be proud. He would, I said dryly. The money is being well used. I know, she said. I'm going to step away now. I'm going to travel. I think I need to find a way to forgive myself. Good luck with that, I said. I couldn't forgive her yet. But the hate had diminished. It had turned into pity. Time passed. Hope Studio became a reference. We didn't just teach sewing. We taught women to have financial independence. We taught dignity. Every stitch is a step towards freedom, I used to say in class. 4 years passed in the blink of an eye. Jasmine became an amazing manager. She met a guy, Marcus, a history teacher who taught at the neighborhood school. A simple, smart man who looked at her like she was the only woman in the world, even when she was in jeans and a chalk-stained t-shirt. They got married in my garden. I made the dress, simple, fluid, with hand-embroidered flowers. And this time she cried tears of joy when she saw it. And then came Aliyah, my granddaughter, the most beautiful thing my eyes have ever seen. And that brings us to now, to today. I'm sitting in my favorite armchair in the studio. I'm 70 now. My hands shake a little, so I sew less and supervise more. Aaliyah is 9. She's sitting on the floor at my feet, with a piece of fabric and a thick, blunt needle. "Grandma, the thread tangled," she complains, pouting. I smile. "Patience, my love. The thread has a mind of its own. You have to talk to it." Jasmine enters the room, carrying rolls of colorful fabric. She stops and looks at the scene. Smiles. "Mom, a letter arrived for you, from the hospital." My heart freezes. I take the envelope. It's from a lawyer. "Mrs. Jones, I regret to inform you that Mrs. Beverly Ellington passed away last night. She left express instructions for this letter and this package to be delivered to you." I opened the package. Inside, there was a velvet box. And inside the box, my engagement ring, the one I sold to pay for Jasmine's college. There was a note. I tracked it down. It took years, but I found it. Bought it back from a collector. "I return to you what your sacrifice bought, and I leave, in my will, a lifetime endowment for Hope Studio. Thank you for teaching me that the thread of forgiveness is the hardest to sew, but the one that holds the tightest." I looked at the ring. It was simple, a tiny stone. But it shone brighter than the chandeliers at the Grand Majestic. I put the ring on my finger. It fit perfectly. "What is that, Grandma?" Aaliyah asked. This is a promise kept, my dear." I stood up and went to the wall where I had framed Samuel's red thread. I put my hand on the glass. "We're okay, Samuel," I whispered. "We're all okay. Life is a strange fabric, y'all. Full of knots, patches, torn parts. Sometimes we sew crooked. Sometimes the thread breaks. But if you have the courage to pick up the needle again, you can always fix it. You can always make a new hem." I looked at my daughter and my granddaughter. The past, the present, and the future, united by an invisible thread of love and resilience. "Come on, Aaliyah," I said, taking her little hand. "Grandma is going to teach you the cross stitch. It's the strongest stitch there is, because it unites two sides that should never be separated." And so, with the needle in hand and a full heart, I made the last stitch of this story, because in the end, we aren't what we wear. We are what we sew. And you? What part of your life needs a patch today? Don't be afraid. Pick up the needle. The red thread is waiting. If you liked my story, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, would you forgive Beverly? I'm still deciding. A kiss from Sylvia, and see you at the next.